Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. News of the week of June 9th, 2025. How's it going?
Oh, it's going so great. The first week of summer. It's awesome. Well, okay, the weather could be better.
It could be.
It's been really rainy over here in Minnesota. But we did manage to do a whole bunch of stuff. So my son was at a camp most of the week. So I had the girls. So I took them to the Science Museum. We saw the Blue Whales Omni film. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, fun.
They play like the underwater sound that you hear from the blue whales, and it's on the Omni Theater sound system. So it's a huge deep bass, and it like rattles your bones. It's crazy, but it's pretty awesome. And then we went to a few parks, did some bike rides as much as we could when it wasn't raining. Went to a festival over in Minneapolis, and then for Father's Day, that was a fun day. I got some nice breakfast. I got a nice breakfast cocktail as well, and then I got the girls a new dresser from IKEA, and I enjoy putting those together. So I spent a lot of the day doing that. So it's almost put up. But
well, if you build IKEA furniture together with your partner, that can be a relationship test.
Yeah, it can
voice
be.
of experience.
And I don't know if they've done actual studies, but I swear that I've heard that people get more satisfaction out of their IKEA furniture because they build it themselves. If they built it themselves,
I'd believe that 100%. I'd believe that because it feels like you own it.
I know. Yeah, exactly. How was your week?
It's been pretty good. My daughter's getting sick though. So she's been having a little trouble sleeping. So we've been kind of going in at night. I think she's just got some body aches or something, but she's got a baby cold. That's all it is right now. It's just a lot of boogers.
10 years into the future, if you need to get data on like how often your daughter was sick, we can just have an LLM go through the transcripts of each episode and like mark it. When did Eric say that his daughter was sick?
Yeah, at the granularity of the week. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but and we have been going out for walks outside when it isn't raining, and she just loves it. She's fascinated with shoes right now, so she wants to put on her shoes, but she also brings our shoes over now and puts them on our feet, often on the wrong foot, and it's very funny. In other news, I went to the IGDA talk last week, and there was a really great talk about side projects, and it really inspired me on how to, with my spicy brain, how to do that and not burn yourself out and keep yourself honest. And I liked it a lot, and I really felt inspired to do a lot more things in a lot more kind of like a regimented way, but also hey, you know what? I've realized after 5 o'clock, I don't want to work on anything. I don't want to have a computer open at all. So I'm just going to hang out and just be a potato after 5 o'clock.
Nice.
So that's my plan going forward. So I'm not going to work on anything after 5 o'clock.
Is there a hot tip that you learned? You're like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to implement that.
I think the big one was setting boundaries. Because I will easily throw myself into something for 12 hours and forget to eat or go outside or talk to a human. And, I can maybe do that for 2 days, but after that, it starts to really burn you out. And I have a hard time knowing how I'm feeling. So I'll just burn myself out. And
yeah, it's not sustainable.
No, not sustainable at all. We're doing a trial run. So I'll report back if we make a change. Also, we've been talking a lot about Vite lately. Excalibur is now 100% on Vite. Thank you, Matt Jennings, for moving Excalibur over to Vite. That's been merged, and I will say it has indeed improved my life dramatically, because I was working on a feature this morning and I was just like, wow, this is great. It's so fast.
Excellent. Have you noticed our CI times go down at all or anything?
Our CI times are faster, but our tests are slower.
Okay.
Because they're all running through Playwright, and it's good and bad. It's good because we can do multi-browser really easily. It's bad in that they're slower.
Maybe there's some parallelization stuff we could do.
Yeah. We probably
optimize
can
it.
make it. We can probably make it faster. And I just haven't figured out how to tune the right knobs. But it's not that much slower. And I got to get rid of AppVeyor, which has been very flaky for us. So now we're running on the Windows machines and GitHub Actions.
So it's just all GitHub Actions now.
Yeah. I deleted our AppVeyor project. It's gone. We won't have to look at that ever again.
Fantastic. Well, should we get into the news?
Let's do it.
What's the headliner?
Amaro 1.0 was released.
What's Amaro?
Yeah, this is actually a great question. This is the thing that is doing the type stripping in Node. So this is a loader that you can just load up into Node, and this is the thing that's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were talking about how you can implement your own thingy, your own language loader, your own JSX by adding a loader into Node. Well, Amaro is kind of like the official one, and it's using a WebAssembly port of SWC and their TypeScript parser, and it's doing the type stripping. So it's all the things we talked about. It's built around at SWC WASM TypeScript. So if you want to go poke around and see how it's done, go check it out.
Yeah, I think the cool thing here, and the reason that it's kind of interesting as a news item, is that you can use it as a standalone package. So if you are working on a dev tool or build tool and you just want to use the same exact type stripping that Node.js is going to use for parity, you can now do that on your own without using like Node.js proper. You can just use the Amaro package. So that's really cool.
Next, we have the first stable release of Oxlint. And this is from VoidZero. This is a TypeScript JavaScript linter written in Rust. Very fast. They're claiming in their blog post that they get 50 to 100x performance improvement over ESLint. They have support for over 500 ESLint rules. They already have major companies using it, like Shopify, Airbnb, Mercedes-Benz. So that's really cool. I mean, I know for me, I spend a lot of time waiting for Lint to happen. So if you can speed that up, that just kind of speeds up that dev cycle.
Yeah, I mean, we disabled linting on commit through the Husky commit hooks because it was so slow. When you want to do your git commit, you want it to be instant. So this is really nice. One thing, though, to be aware of is that like ESLint, it does not do type-aware linting. So for that, you'll need to use Josh Goldberg's TypeScript ESLint stuff. But the nice thing here is that it's kind of a drop-in replacement. Not quite. You do need a secondary package called Oxlint-migrate if you're using ESLint, but then that will let you gradually migrate over to Oxlint. But it's still really exciting, and maybe we'll see type-aware linting in the future. This is only the 1.0 release.
Yeah, I have a few other caveats to add on. 1.0 here is just the beginning. They say custom rules are coming soon. So you don't have the ability to write custom rules at the moment. JavaScript plugin support is coming soon. So that'll happen in the future. So this might just be like a try and maybe not a buy yet. They're doing more performance improvements, and they're also doing the ESLint v9 style configuration. So, which I think is better. So if you've done ESLint in the past, you might have been stymied by the configuration complexity. The v9 configuration plus, I think, is much better. I think you'll have a better time.
Very good. And next on the docket, we've got pnpm has a new minor release, but it's kind of a major release because it has a big feature, which is called the Global Virtual Store. And you're probably wondering, what does that mean? So I'm just going to read from the blog post because it explains it pretty well. The standout feature in this release is an experimental global virtual store designed to make installs much faster on machines with a warm cache. So traditionally, pnpm links dependencies into a node modules.pnpm directory. With the global store enabled, those links instead point to a shared directory located at like a whatever central store path where each package is stored in a folder named after the hash of its full dependency graph. So the result is that multiple projects on your machine can reuse the same dependency instances without relinking or re-downloading, so that will significantly reduce install time. So this makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. This should really speed things up, I think. And maybe I should just use pnpm from now on. I've been like an npm, I'm too lazy to use yarn or anything else, but maybe I just need to use pnpm, especially for the linking aspect. I know that is improved greatly.
I feel like it makes sense if you're going to be in the Node.js stack, you probably just want to use pnpm. And then obviously if you're in Bun, you'd use the Bun one. And then if on Dino, you'd use the Dino one, because those are all just built in to the CLIs. But for Node, you have npm, but most people, I think, prefer pnpm. Very nice. The next thing is pretty neat. It's a new framework that was posted on Blue Sky from NX Josh, and it's called TypeFire, and it is a meta programming framework for TypeScript. Okay, what does that mean exactly? So essentially, you can write simpler TypeScript using packages that come from TypeFire, and then it compiles it and transforms that code into whatever the more verbose runtime-specific TypeScript is. So I think the examples on the homepage sort of make it a little bit more solidified in my head. So one of the examples showcases importing a SQL helper from a TypeFire package, and you construct the query using like Fluent function syntax. So it's just TypeScript code, but you're importing it from TypeFire, and then it transforms it, and the transforms result can target different types of databases. So it could target Bun and Postgres, or Bun and MySQL, or whatever, but the original code that you wrote in the meta framework in TypeFire remains the same. So you can have different targets, and depending on your target, the code changes and gets transformed depending on the runtime. So this is still in early access, so there's not like a lot of docs that I can refer you to, but you can go to the homepage and learn a bit more about it. But I think one of the things is that they're very interested in like what frameworks you might be working with and what tools, because TypeFire would need to add support for any of those kind of targets that you would want. So if you're working in Supabase, or you're working in Postgres proper, or SQLite, or whatever, TypeFire would need to add support for those targets. So they're kind of interested in what your stack is. Hopefully we can learn more about it. There's some neat functions that allow you to like write code that gets evaluated at compile time. And Eric, you know a little bit more about this than I do, because I think, did you say that in Zig there's something similar called comp time? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you can explain that better than I can.
Yeah, so like in ye olde land of like C, C++, you would use like something kind of like preprocessor macros to do code generation at compile time. And C# has something similar called source generation, very similar idea. Mm-hmm. The Zig folks have created something called comp time, which allows you to write Zig code. So as far as I can tell, it's the same idea here, where you can write TypeScript code to write TypeScript code if you're using this comp time function. So you're able to do like, hey, I want this code to be like flattened at compile time, and you can do wild stuff with it. And, you know, if you want some examples, it looks like it's, honestly, based on the naming, it looks like it's inspired by Zig. I could be totally wrong by that. That's totally just a guess, but it looks really cool. It's definitely something that I use a lot in like native programming or in C#. For example, if you're writing like a JSON validator and you can't use a reflection, you need to use source generators in order to generate static code that can validate the contract you're expecting. So that's one reason you might do it, because then it would be very efficient, because you don't have to do any kind of runtime inspection. You can build very efficient source generated code.
Yeah, I think the thing that reminded me of the way that I do my TypeScript types when I sync them from the server in C#, and I'm using Visual Studio, there's a extension called Typewriter. It allows you to write T4 templates, and then those T4 templates get transformed at compile time into however many TypeScript files you want. So for example, like you have a view model in C# with a bunch of properties and on a class, and you want to represent that same type over on your front end. So it can generate that as a template. And so it can say, hey, give me all the types in the view model's namespace, and I'm just going to transform them into, separate TypeScript files. So you can use it to generate like HTTP clients and all sorts of stuff. But this looks even sort of more powerful because you don't have to learn a separate syntax. It's like you're just writing TypeScript that can then get compiled to write its own TypeScript.
Indeed. Next up, I have something that is maybe not a usual update for us, but Go has a preview of their 1.25 release. It's not released yet. It's still work in progress, and I don't know what they call it. So pardon me, Gophers, for getting it wrong, but you can go and play with it now. But they have in their release notes, they have really, really cool like performance enhancements that they're adding, especially to the garbage collector. So maybe this has some implications for TSGo improving. I don't know if this is like a collaboration with the folks at Microsoft or not. Pure speculation on my part, but they've added a ton of performance enhancements to improve both the compiler and the garbage collector. So they're expecting 10 to 40% reduction in garbage collection overhead, which is wild. Like that is huge. A wild number. Yeah. So yeah. And this new garbage collector setting can be enabled with a environment variable, which is go experiment equals green TGC, all one word, all lowercase. And we'll link to the blog post here from the Go team. But yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's sweet. So anything that improves Go hopefully will improve TypeScript Go. That'll be nice. We've got some wider ecosystem news.
Yes, WWDC 25 just happened.
Oh, the wrestling championship.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, doesn't it? It's the Apple Developer Conference, and I don't know what the WW stands for, and that's because I'm not an Apple person. But there was a lot of announcements to Safari, our WebKit in Safari 26 beta. They're adding a ton of cool features. Notably, we're getting SVG icons. Finally, you're getting SVG icons, which means you can have animated SVG icons, I think. So you can do really wild stuff with SVG icons. HDR images, you can now embed WebKit in Swift UI. And that's pretty neat. Other thing that I'm really excited about is they have finally unflagged WebGPU. So, for my graphics programmers out there, Safari is going to ship WebGPU before Firefox does, I think. Unflagged, that is. So hopefully this kind of pushes the web forward as well. And there's a ton of other updates in the WebKit blog post, and I'll link to that. There's just a ton of stuff. It's all really good things. It's all like, it warms my heart because usually, I'm going to throw some shade at Safari. Usually they're the ones lagging behind. So this is just like a ton of really cool stuff, and it's making me really excited for the future of the web.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. Did you see anything in the blog post mentioning progressive web apps? Because we know that Safari, Safari is not so great at the progressive web app thing for obvious reasons.
Yeah, PWAs. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So for the last 17 years, here's the blog post. For the last 17 years, if a website had the correct meta tag or web application manifest value, the user could add it to their home screen. On Mac, we took a different approach, introducing web apps on Mac in September 2023. And it doesn't matter if your website has the web application manifest. It always opens as a web app. Now we are bringing this new behavior to iOS and iPad by default.
Gotcha. Okay, so you can basically make any website, you can pin it to your home screen. Because I remember in order to sort of add quote unquote PWA support, but not really PWA, you had the user had to go into a share menu and tell it to pin it to the home screen, but that was only with that manifest. So it sounds like now you can kind of do that for any web app.
Yeah, and before you get your pitchforks, there is a paragraph here that says, this change, of course, is not removing any of WebKit's current support for web app features. So they're not removing PWA stuff. It seems like this is a yes and. So it's like bringing a lot of the desktop features into the mobile browsers.
TypeScript FM is sponsored by Excalibur.js, the friendly TypeScript game engine for the web. Like many of you, I got into computers because I loved video games and dreamed of making one, but game development always felt a bit intimidating. Instead, I built a career in web development, though that dream of making games never really went away. Then I met Eric, who showed me I could use my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills to create games with just a bit of game design knowledge and the right engine. Excalibur.js makes game development approachable, offering everything you need to build 2D web games. Arcade physics, sprites, animations, input support, and integrations with tools like Tiled and AceSprite. It's beginner-friendly, yet flexible enough to grow with you. Our team has published 10 games using Excalibur, all written in TypeScript. If you're a web developer looking to dip your toes into game dev or sharpen your TypeScript skills, give Excalibur.js a try at excalibur.js.com. Click the big tutorial button to start building your first game, Excalibur, a Flappy Bird clone. After that, join our friendly Discord community of web developers who love to help each other and share game dev tips. All right, sweet. We've got some community highlights. What about security? Usually we don't talk too much about TypeScript security, but since TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript and your TypeScript code gets compiled to JavaScript, there's still security stuff you have to think about, even when you're using TypeScript. So Liran has a talk that they recently gave called Friend or Foe TypeScript Security Fallacies. And hopefully we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic with Liran directly, but you can go check out his talk. But a lot of it has to do with confusion between type safety at development time versus type safety at runtime, because they're not the same. If you tell TypeScript that something is a number at runtime, you can still pass a string, And then the other thing is, even if you're using Zod, which is sort of the immediate answer to that, well, I can use Zod to do runtime validation. He actually does talk about prototype pollution as an attack vector, even if you're using Zod or other schema validator libraries. So very interesting talk. Hopefully we can dive a little bit deeper into TypeScript security and really JavaScript security, but from the lens of a TypeScript developer pretty soon in the future. The next thing that I saw on Blue Sky was from Charlotte, aka cinny.bun.how. She just posted a new TypeScript data validation library. So think Zod, but instead it's called Justin, and it's just-in-time function compilation. So I'm not a Zod expert, but I think that the way that it works is via interpreting these schema objects when you use like z.infer, I think is kind of how a lot of it works. But it happens at runtime, and what this does, they show an example of basically having a compile function. And so you compile it ahead of time at runtime, but you only do it once. So then you run the compile function once, which is slow, but then you can reuse that validator anywhere, which is really, really fast. And in their micro benchmarks, they were showing 10 to 20 times faster than Zod 4 Mini. And so I think some of the reasons are because those checks get inlined once it gets compiled. So you do have to choose, like, when do you want to incur the cost of compilation? But it can be whenever you want to. That's why it's called just in time. So I think it gives you a little bit more control. So if you have a tight loop or something, you can, compile it outside the loop and then reuse the validator within the loop to keep it really, really fast. So it's kind of up to you to when you want to do that. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty neat, and you can go check out that GitHub repo for more info on that.
Yeah, it looks super cool. And I think, the name is probably prophetic, because if I were to guess why it's faster, is because it's doing this ad hoc function creation. So it's creating static, it's creating new functions, because you can do that in JavaScript. It's creating new functions on the fly for these validators. So when it's doing this and not interpreting, like building a new validator each time, and like Zod, where you're doing .parse and you're just running through the validators that you've created in your schema, it's allows the browser JIT or the runtime JIT to do good things with your validators, because now they're all inlined. And if you have simple inline functions, it allows the JIT to be like, oh, this is a hot path, and it can do like optimizations like browser JIT. So that's my guess as to why this is faster. Also, knowing nothing about how it's built right now, other than what we just talked about, is it could be like lower function overhead, because maybe if you're inlining all the checks, then you're not doing function calls. Mm-hmm. So like if you're inlining everything, then, and it's relatively small, then you can do things really fast, because you don't need to do function invocation. So that could be it.
It does say that it's very memory efficient. So that's probably one of the reasons.
Yeah. But this is super cool. A really clever way of solving this problem that I wouldn't have done. So I'm really glad that she built this, because this is really cool.
Yeah, so go check that out. The other thing that I saw was a blog post on React Final Form. They have switched from Flow to TypeScript. So when they originally created Final Form, Facebook was, all into React and Flow. And so they chose Flow to build Final Form. And then recently, people have been filing issues like, hey, can we get it updated to modern React 19? Can we switch it to TypeScript, because that's where the industry is now? And they said, sure, who wants to do it? And nobody raised their hand to go volunteer to do that. So they actually used LLMs and AI agents to convert the code base, and it went better than they expected. Obviously, it's been fully reviewed, but it's also been revved as a breaking change just in case. But I thought, this was a really nice use of AI agents because they asked for human volunteers and nobody wanted to do it. And I mean, that kind of makes sense because it is pretty tedious.
Yeah, and they were kind of mum on the details a little bit in the blog post. But what I would suggest, if you are going to translate like a code base from one like language to another, like arguably Flow is just JavaScript with spicy comments. But I think if you were going to do this with another language, I would use an LLM to build the tool that migrates your thing so that your migration is deterministic. So that would be, I don't know if that's what they did, but I think that would be my recommendation is like, rather than, run an LLM on every source file and hope that it's consistently like translating your code, I would write a tool that builds like, there's tons of really good stuff like Acorn or other like AST libraries. Have the LLM generate some, AST libraries, and it's basically a code mod, and have they do that. And then you have a program, a utility that is deterministic that you can run. That would be my suggestion.
It sounded like they had their test suite and their lint and their linting. And so the agent, because you can give them tools now, right? And like VS Code agents or other ones. So it sounded like he was able to have it run the tests as it tried to do the conversion. But yeah, there's not a lot of detail on like how much back and forth was there and stuff. But just the end result is that it is now converted to TypeScript.
Next, friend of the show, Josh Goldberg, has wrapped up his If I Wrote a Linter blog post series, with the final blog post here as a kind of a summary. And I think you should check out his new project called Flint, which is going to be this TypeScript linter that has two intended purposes, is to try out the new ideas that he's had. And a big part of the ideas, like he's listed in all these blog posts, but a big one is like type awareness and being able to take advantage of types in order to do really robust fixes. And the other things are developer experience. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's early days. The new linter is called Flint. It's a fast, friendly linter is the branding. There's a Discord and a GitHub repository, so go check it out. I am definitely going to be checking it out because I also need a fast, friendly linter. So definitely subscribe to anything that Josh is doing because he's awesome. Next up, I have some news from Dr. Axel. He has a brand new edition of his Exploring JavaScript book for 2025, which I have purchased. It's free to read online, but you can purchase it if you want. I have purchased it. It's got flashcards to help you learn content. It's got a bunch of new content for 2025. It's focused on modern JavaScript. So if you're like, oh boy, it's changed a lot in the last last 2 decades, like let's refresh and do the modern thing. So he's got a good summary of all the things that he goes over. It has all of the latest ES 2025 stuff in it. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, that's sweet. So just get all the fundamentals and get a nice refresh.
That's right. Another friend of the show, Jason Yu, has put out a new video that he promised. So yay. And it's great. It's on the principle of least power for better code. And definitely check out his YouTube video. The idea behind the principle of least power, or as he's calling it, the rule of least power in this video, ROLP, #ROLP, is you want to use the feature that just has enough power to accomplish your goal. The thesis is that that increases readability, debuggability, and the opportunity for bugs to creep in is far lower because the thing you're using has exactly enough power to accomplish its task. And this is kind of a design principle that was pioneered by the W3C since the inception of the web. So that's why the web is so great.
Nice.
But definitely check out his video. He sponsored it himself. He's looking for a new job. So if you have a new job, definitely reach out to Jason.
Yeah, and you should listen to our deep dive with him too on the TS Migrate package that he created. And at the end of that episode, we talked about the principle of least power, and we said that we would feature it once it's available, and now it is, so you should go check it out. Moving on to some cool links. If you subscribe to This Week in React, you might know Sebastian, and he posted a sort of like, hey, remember this? and it's about TypeBuddy. And this is the first time that I saw TypeBuddy, but Eric, you've seen TypeBuddy before, but you can kind of think of it as like Google Translate for complex types to more like reading type expressions as functions. So it makes a little bit more sense to my brain. So for example, it'll change conditional type syntax to like if conditions. So when you hover over it in your editor in the IntelliSense or whatever, it'll show you the TypeBuddy version of it so that you can parse it with your brain a little bit easier than just reading the complex types. But you can like paste in any complex type and it'll spit out a more like functional version of it in the TypeBuddy syntax. And it sounds like you've used this before too.
Yeah, this is great if you have a really complex like type conditional and you want to be like, your eyes kind of go cross because it's kind of in a ternary syntax, hard to read.
Yes.
So this is from Christian Wars, I think is his last name. I probably spelled that wrong, but he's the fellow behind the Type Rocks YouTube channel. So if you don't subscribe to the Type Rocks YouTube channel, you should, because he's got awesome stuff.
Nice. The next thing that I saw could be useful if you're building a product or anything that accepts email addresses and you want to verify them. And this is not just a like regular expression verifier. This is a Node email verifier. It's a Node.js package, and it will actually catch fake and like known bad emails from different hosts. So I think it validates, I don't know how many different known host names for like, because you can get random private emails or whatever, temporary email addresses. So if you need to do more extra email verification, then you can go check out this package. It's by Jesse L. Palmer. So go check that out. And then 2 episodes I was listening to, some of my podcasts. Eric listens to a lot of the tech podcasts. I listen to a bunch of like product and like finance podcasts. But one of them is the Bootstrapped Founder podcast by Arvid Kahl. He's built several successful Bootstrap companies. He's currently building one called Podscan. So what I like about him is he kind of shares his journey and how he works and stuff. But he had a really nice episode lately on how he uses AI coding, code assistance, and his workflow for how he works on his apps. It's like hearing from someone how they actually build their product with it, and it's not just like marketing hype or whatever that you hear from other people. It's just a nice episode to hear what his workflow is really like. And then if you've heard of Nathan Barry, he is the founder of ConvertKit, which is now just called Kit. But again, another successful Bootstrap founder. His podcast is great because he does both audio and video coaching sessions. So he like has creators come in to his studio and he does coaching with them and he records it. And it's really, really cool to sort of hear actual problems that people are running into and how they're solving it and Nathan's approach to it. So really neat.
All right. I've got some cool links. First up is friend of the show again, Josh Goldberg has been busy this week. He was on the Weekly Devs Brew podcast talking about his conversion from full-time Microsoft dev to full-time open source, which is made for me. I want to do this. It's currently not possible in my life, but this is in my eventually plan.
We'll get you there.
If my boss is listening, it's not happening anytime soon. So, but it's really, really cool to kind of hear how he's doing it. And he's super transparent about how it's going and like where he gets his income, how his daily routine works, his work structure, and how that, that whole balance works. And this is a great episode about it. And you should listen if that is a thing you're interested in. Another podcast, the Contejas podcast, Alex Lichter of VoidZero was on talking about Vite, Rolldown, and OXC, which we talked about briefly on this show. But it's a really good deep dive and kind of where all of the pieces kind of fit together in VoidZero in the current open source stuff that they're doing for, building this integrated tool chain, like all-in-one, one-stop shop for web dev. So great podcast episode. I've listened to it. I think it's like 2 hours long. Super good. Definitely check that out. And then something that is totally not web related, or maybe it is on the WooCache podcast, Nick Barker of Clay layout library fame. It's a Flexbox-style layout library written in C.
Ooh.
And that, if you know me, that excites me. Flexbox, that's my hammer, and C is also like my new love right now. I've been watching and reading and writing a lot of C code for my evil machinations lately. And I really like C. So I'm the weirdo that likes JavaScript and C, I guess, in my friend group.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Nick Barker is a charismatic speaker. He has a great way of like making something that seems complex very digestible.
Wonderful. That sounds fun. I would guess that you would use the Flexbox like at the terminal level or like actual GUI.
Yes, both.
Both. Okay, cool.
So they have, if you take a look at the Clay repo, they have different renderers. So the way that Clay works is it gives you out a render buffer that has like a dozen or so commands, and most of it's like draw text or draw rectangle. And as long as you implement that contract, you can build a renderer for it. So it'll figure out all the weird Flexbox stuff and all the layout and positioning stuff. And all you need to do is, if you want to port it somewhere, and they have a ton of renderers in the GitHub repo, so you probably don't need to worry. They have one for SDL too, which SDL can run on every device known to man, including PlayStations. Anyway, but they also have a terminal UI one, so you can do terminal UIs with Clay as well. And they also have one for the Playdate, which is a 1-bit console that you can buy that a friend of mine works on. So you literally now can like build pretty robust layouts. The Clay website is using the WASM version of Clay to lay out the web elements.
Love it.
Which I thought was really awesome. So you can do like cross-platform layouting with Clay.
Okay. That does sound really cool. You know what it reminded me of? There is a library called Ink, which lets you build CLI apps in React, and it does the same thing where it's all Flexbox based, or like, Flexbox rules engine based. But it was super nice. I was able to do my advent of code and build like a word finder solver, like a crossword solver, and I used Ink to build the UI for it in the terminal, and that was really neat.
Yeah. And also, if you know me, I'm a big NeoVim Andy right now and terminal UI thing. So like I do all of my development at work and at home in WesTerm in the terminal UI. So I haven't opened VS Code or Visual Studio in months.
You should put that in your LinkedIn headline. NeoVim Dandy.
Exactly. Yeah. That is gonna be my new headline. I like that NeoVim Dandy. At
the very least, we could put it on the podcast in your little headline, your tagline there on the website, so it shows up there. But
yeah,
cool. Well, I think that's an episode.
I think that's a show.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
See you later, Kermit the Frog.
Hi everyone, this is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to TypeScript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at Kamronicus.com, and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.